Hey, what's up, everyone? My name's Lionel, and I'm your host for LT Productions. You are watching I Watch You Watch. We are covering The Hunting Wives. It's currently streaming on Netflix, and we are on to season 1, episode 4. I appreciate everyone for coming to my channel. In support of me, please like this video. You can subscribe if you are new. I welcome you aboard. Leave your comments below, and you can share this video. Now let's get into The Hunting Wives. Okay. All right. So, where I just left off from you, Sophie realizes her handgun is missing. So, obviously, there is a sweet setup that is about to take place. Anyways, we see that Star is watching an old video between Abby and her friend. I forgot who it is, but it's the one that was pregnant and all that good stuff. And she was talking with Abby in the last episode, trying to find out where Brad was. But now that we are finally current and up to date, we won't be having that type of flashback, but we do have other flashbacks coming along. Star's watching it, and of course in tears. You see Brad, he's watching it too, and he's not looking too great. Pastor Pete is watching it too. And then Sophie is also. But Graham comes in and is like, can you at least turn down the music a little bit? And Sophie's like, yeah. Graham thinks it's quite morbid that Sophie is watching this video over a girl that he didn't know. And she was like, no, I didn't know her, but she did go to our church. Our church? Y'all visited one time. Obviously, Sophie has gotten so engulfed in these ladies in such a short amount of time. And now she is taking on what she didn't think that she would ever be a part of. That's quite crazy, because this is only, what, 3 weeks in? Well, about 3 weeks in, when Sophie first met up with Margot and Jeb and all them folks. You know, for people that are guarded and you think that are just so tough to break, all you got to do is find that open place, and they can get in there and shake your life if you're that guarded and all that good stuff. Nah, Sophie's gotten too comfortable with Margot and the rest of the people. So he's asking, you know, what happened, because I was trying to reach you last night, You were drinking, and I couldn't reach you. And Sophie says, no, I wasn't drinking. That wasn't it. Then what happened? She said, you know, I got too much sun, and and then Jack walks in because she's making up a lie as she's going, and it just sounded ridiculous. So Jack is asking Sophie, like, Dad told me what you did. And she was like, what did I do? You offed a pig. And then Sophie says, no, I offed a boar. Jack asks, you know, why? Because they are big and scary. And there are too many of them in Texas. Do y'all hear all those code words and stuff? Ooh. They're talking about boars, but that is quite symbolic to some of the other stuff that's happening within Texas. Treating them as the other, treating them as the enemy, basically. And I love this writer for using that type of way, even though they talk about the immigrants and the people that are over the border also. But it's cool that there's different types of ways to acknowledge and have analogies as to what's really happening in our world today, especially in our country. Jack says, you should not K-I-L-L. Sophie says, you know, you're right. And she said, no more K-I-L-L-I-N-G. If you know what I know. Okay. This scene, I rolled my eyes so hard. Margot goes and visits Jill and brings her a bouquet of flowers on behalf of what they know about Abby. What the hell is going on here? What? That is so crazy to me. Jill, like her child, was the one that was taken away. It wasn't. So then they were like, Jill was like, how are you doing? Oh, I'm shaking up a little bit. How's Brad? He's a mess. Well, and then he said, above all of this, the police want to question him. Like, why would they want to do that? Margot was like, well, you know, they want to question him because she was like, well, he's on his way to Baylor and all that. Why do they need to question him? Like, it's just out of the question that Brad could have done anything to this girl. Margot says, well, my suggestion is that you need to get a more aggressive lawyer because it's better to be safe than sorry since they're already trying to question you about different things. You just don't know what's going to happen. Well, Joe says, well, we have nothing to worry about because he was home all night. And Margot was like, oh, really? In her head. So Margot asked, can she go up to talk to him? She brought him something or whatever. And Joe was like, he has not eaten since he found out the news and all that good stuff. So maybe you could help him. Because she was talking about something or whatever. Anyways, she goes up there for her own agenda. That's why she even brought those bouquet of flowers to Jill. She comforts him. And then we find out why she's really there. She asks Brad, what happened that night with Abby? And then Brad was like, are you effing serious? And Margot was like, no, these are questions that are probably going to be asked of you. And you got to just get your story straight about all of this, He says, well, Jamie drove me straight home. Okay, and then Margot was just easing into saying, I think at this point that we need to have each other's backs. And I need you to have my back. I'd appreciate it if your mom or the police not knowing about that night of us getting together. And Brad said, I'm not going to tell anyone. And then she said, tell Jamie too, not to say anything. Okay. That was her whole agenda. Sophie calls Margot and tells her, I'm coming by today because I'm missing something. Kelly and Margot, they go out. And Margot wants to find out. She has an agenda for everybody. They're pawns to help her do what she needs to do in this town. So she calls Callie, and Callie's so dumb she don't even realize it as of yet. Margot's trying to figure out, are there any suspects in this whole Abby, Killing? Callie was like, no, but do you think they'll think that Brad is a part of it? Callie said no, but then Margot was saying, you think that they think that it's Brad? They're like, no. Callie thinks, or somebody said it, I forget which one. I think they need to focus further south. Basically, people over the border. Quite crazy. And then, I forget who said what. Basically, it was brought up to Callie, this could be a good opportunity for Johnny because this is election year. It's like Margot's being very manipulative. Of course, she wants to find what's going on, and then she wants people to do what she needs to get done. So then she suggests that because some of these people are power and ego hungry. Like, she said, I hate to say this, but, it would be good if you just kind of use that whole border type of situation to help out my situation, to drive them from having focus on Brad. And to nail someone so that nobody's, on my trail at all for anything. So Callie goes to the office immediately and tells Johnny, look, I think you need to use this immigration angle. You want the borders open? Well, this is what you're getting. And I'm so glad the ending episode paints a different picture than what these jokers want to paint. So Jill and Clint, this is the pastor. Jill comes out there stern and saying, we have something that we got to talk about. In regards to what's going on with Brad. They want to question him. They may try to pin him for something that he didn't do. Clint says that if Brad did this, may the Lord have mercy, because I certainly will not. And Jill goes off. Clint, how dare you? She's mama bear to the 10th power. I really wonder if Brad is Clint's. Because, of course, he doesn't hover over him like Jill does. But something's up between this connection with Brad and Jill. It's interesting. So Jill goes up to Brad's bathroom. He's taking a shower. And he says, we got to really have corroborating stories. And let's just go with this story that you were home all night. We had tacos, and we binge watched The Outer Banks. And I made some Muddy Buddies. Whatever those things are, I'm gonna find out what they are. I can't have them to eat, but hey, somebody can. Sophie, she goes over to the Banks home, basically the lake house, and nobody's answering the door. The door is open, so she helps herself in, and she starts seeing if she could find the pow pow. she ended up finding her red panties that were stuck between the sofa. I said, wow. you went home and didn't even know that your panties were missing? But I mean, I know the gun is more important, but I'm like, lady. Anyways, we move on to Detective Salazar. She's looking more into Abby, and she was noticing that Abby had what appears to have been some type of ring that's been there for a long time. The other deputy, Flynn, he's saying, what, you think somebody robbed her? Like nothing else was missing. So like, no, it could have been an engagement ring, and then they figured out possibly a purity ring. So at this point, they think it was kind of this crime of passion and moving towards thinking it could have been Brad. So Margot comes and sees that Sophie's snooping and says, you find anything interesting? And Sophie says, I can't find my handgun. Well, Margot says that she doesn't know where it's at, and then Sophie asks, could Brad or Jamie have taken it? She said, I don't think so. Brad mentioned that Jamie had a thing for Abby. And Margot was like, you don't remember anything that happened? And Sophie said, no. So then next thing you know, Margot says, I'm here and it's just going to be us. Let's just start doing some breathing exercises, da-da-da-da-da-da. So after doing the breathing exercises, as she's pulling her more into her web, she asks Sophie, do you remember this? And then begins to kiss her. And she said, yeah. Sophie does. The next thing you know, they had sex. Now, I don't know if this is the first time they consummated their marriage, their relationship, or if it was last night, or whenever the last time that they were together. I don't know. Now we go back to the police office, or the police station. Brad has his lawyer, and also Johnny is there. Johnny is there to question Brad. The question is quite light, ain't really nothing going on. Brad first says, it was all my fault. They were like, what do you mean? I should have been there with Abby. She was all alone, laying it on thick. But I was grounded. I was grounded for cussing. So then Johnny said, oh, you were home. Yes. And we had tacos and we binge watched The Outer Banks. And then also my mom, she made Muddy Buddies. And all of a sudden that just warmed and melted Johnny's heart and all that good stuff, whatever. So he ends up, so is there anyone that could put you anywhere else? And he says, no. Okay, I think we're done with the questioning. And of course the deputy and Salazar is really upset. They were like, that's all you're gonna say to him? Blah, 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 blah. So they go outside and you basically see them talking about, Brad's got a big future. Can't wait for him to be out there, da, 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 da. So Star's coming there, but she has a plate of something, I guess for the officers, and she's pissed. Like, y'all acting very chummy up in there. How come he's not arrested as of yet? Jill tries to jump in and said, hey, da, 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 da. And Star's not having it. And then, I think that was it. Salazar ends up taking Star, and they talk for a few minutes. And Star was like, this is very heavy on me and all of that, and I just need to know if there's going to be progress. Salazar says it's all a process, and we are trying to figure out the clues and all that good stuff. What about that other girl? That's the Kaylee girl. Salazar says, I don't remember much about it. I just know that whomever is the culprit, I smelt vodka and cinnamon gum, as far as cinnamon gum was supposed to cover up the vodka smell. But she said that she smelt that smell before because her father used to do all that too. Star did express, I seen the way that Brad was to Abby, and I stood there and I did nothing. And I believe that he's basically won and all that good stuff, and I need justice in a nutshell. So, this is the afterglow of Sophie and Margot. So it had to really be their first time. Margot says, it seems like you've done this before. And she said, Sophie did, once in college. Then she sees the scar in her stomach area, and she wanted to know what happened. I want to know all your secrets. You are this trusting of this woman, and mind you, it's only been 3 weeks, Sophie. You done told her everything. She's telling you stuff, but how much do you really know of this woman, for real? Anyways, we find out that Sophie and Graham, they were pregnant again after Jack. She ended up losing the baby and had to have an emergency hysterectomy, so they can't have any children. And that's why they were talking the way that they were talking in the first episode, when the others were asking, you're not going to have any more children? No brother or sister for Jack? Yeah. She ended up medicating herself by drinking and all that good stuff, and then she had that accident that she talked about. And then Sophie says, I'm broken. Then Margot says, no, you're not broken, but there's something about you that makes me want to protect you. Oh, and then we go into what her angle really is that we need a story that corroborates. And what the pact was is that they were together all night, had drinks and all that, and they were here at the lake house. And that's what they were going to go with. All right, so Pastor Clint meets up with Pastor Pete. And you can tell that he's a wreck over this whole situation with Abby. Pastor Clint says, it seems like you were too close to the youth. And you are way too familiar with this, and this isn't Louisiana. Apparently, Pastor Pete got some drama back in Louisiana with another church and all that. Pastor Pete said to Pastor Clint, wait a minute, you said that this is my fresh start, so why are you bringing all this stuff up? And Clint says, it's not about trying to get rid of you or whatever. We just need you to step aside in this moment and all that good stuff. So you're kind of just on leave right now. Jill comes by Star's home. And of course she's having all these pleasantries. Hi, how you doing? Did you get my edible arrangement? And then of course she moves out the way and says, there's your edible arrangement. I don't know if she gave her something else, but we'll get into the box situation in just a second. But she was trying to hand off something else. But she says, it's just awful for what happened with Abby, but you know what? We really need to stand up for our community and all of that. And Clint is going to be offering up an award in the church's name. Again, I didn't know that the church and state can do this type of stuff. So there's supposed to be a separation, but too many hands in the cookie jar. Because we really want to see justice. And then Star was like, oh, you want justice as long as it's not Brad. I think Jill said, it's not Brad. Brad didn't do this. No, you're missing the whole point. Anyways, I will see you at the funeral. I think the funeral hasn't started yet, right? No. Yeah. She opens the box. And it's the stars that she bought for... It's the boots that she bought for Abby. And of course, at this point, she just is hysterical because she knows that she can't give these boots to her daughter. Sophie and Graham, they're back at the house eating dinner. Graham asked, how was your day? And she said, it was good, as we see the flashback of her having sex with Morgan. What did you do all day? She said, just going through the boxes that are in the garage. Then next thing you know, Margot texts and says, miss you. And then Sophie texts back, miss you too. It's so crazy she don't even know that she's being manipulative, but hey. Jack calls out, hey, no phones at the dinner table. And she said, oh, you're right. And Graham says, who is that? She said, it's just Margot talking about the vigil tonight for Abby. And Graham said, yep, it's good to make an appearance there, especially with my boss being there. Da-da-da-da-da. Jeb and Margot. Jeb is looking at how everyone is stepping up in this whole Abby situation, especially about what Pastor Clint is doing and offering this award. Margot was like, well, this isn't really some type of competition, right? Well, it seems like I'm really due to have some type of call of service in this whole situation. So obviously it has something to do with his political position. So the vigil happens. Sophie and Graham, they show up, and Jamie comes over there being very familiar with Sophie and hugging her and just kind of just wanting to speak a little bit about Abby, da-da-da-da-da. And Sophie introduces Jamie to Graham and all that. And then when Jamie walks off, Graham's like, who is that? You're like, what? That's Brad's friend. They're friends of Jeb and Margot and all that good stuff. Blah, 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 blah. You met him at the car wash. Oh. Again, Sophie, you done got dragged into these folks very quickly. I'm sorry. It's way too soon for you to be this so in community with these folks. You latched on too quick. Then, of course, Jeb and Margot come, and they just want them to stand around them. Da 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 da. So then, of course, that girl sings. That's Abby's friend. Then Pastor Clint announces that there's going to be a 100K reward to find out who is the killer. Then next thing you know, Jeb makes his way to the podium. He hugs on Star like he really cares. And then he interrupts what Clint has to say and basically announces his run for governor. And what his angle is that we got to protect ourselves, and I'm here to protect our community and protect our borders and da 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 da. Next thing you know, the police, they show up on the grounds and they're looking for Sophie. Come to find out, the weapon that was used to off Abby, guess whose it is? Sophie. So they ended up arresting her. Graham was like, she don't own a gun, so she hasn't said anything to Graham about anything. So, wow, how things have twisted up for Miss Sophie, but hey, this is what you wanted to get in so bad, and now you got it. All right, so tune in to episode 5. That's coming right up. You know, I have the whole playlist. There's other playlists that you can watch of different dramas that I also cover. But I appreciate everyone for coming to my channel. Like, share, and everything else. And until the next one, peace.